Hey, Montel Williams here. Look, I've got some incredible news to share with you. I want to tell you about my brand new book that's coming out that's called The Sailing of the Intrepid. Now, this book is more than just an historical account. It's a tribute to the brave men who served aboard the USS Intrepid and a celebration of their extraordinary legacy. Writing this book was such an incredible story, and I'm really thrilled to be able to share it with you. So don't wait to grab your little piece of history. The book is available right now to order. You can go to montelmedia.com, and you can even get a limited autograph signed copy. Now, thank you so much for your support. I can't wait for you to read this incredible story of the sailing of the Intrepid. I'll see you on the pages. Hey folks, welcome to Let's Be Blunt with Montel. How are you doing? I hope everything's been going well for you. Today we've got an incredible show for you. This is the podcast where we have real conversations about cannabis, culture, and everything in between. Of course, I'm your host, Montel Williams, and today we have some very special guests and a very special episode. Joining me are two of the legends in the cannabis world, Rick and Laura Campanella, also known as MrSoul and MrsSoul, the masterminds behind Brothers Grimm Seeds. Now, if you're a cannabis enthusiast and you've probably heard of Brothers Grimm Seeds, they're the architects of some of the most iconic strains in the industry. Everything from Cinderella 99, Rosetta Stone, Apollo, and so many more. But today, we're not just talking about their legacy, we're also diving into the future of Brothers Grimm Seeds, including a very exciting collaboration that we're launching together this November, a new seed in line in my name. That's right, folks. Montel is officially getting into the genetics game. Rick, Laura, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel.
Thank you, Montel.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Nice to have you guys both. Look, let's dive right in. Rick, I mean, you've been in this game now for decades, and your name is synonymous with legendary cannabis genetics. But I got to ask you, how did you come up with the name Brothers Grimm Seeds? It's such a unique and memorable name.
It actually was a second name that came after the most famous strain that I've ever created, which was Cinderella 99. And we thought Cinderella was a name that suited a strain of marijuana because marijuana is the buds are from the female plant. And so Cinderella being female and cinders are ashes, which is what marijuana turns into when you smoke it. And so we liked the name Cinderella so much. And then we thought, who are the authors of that story, the children's story? And it's the Brothers Grimm. And we thought, well, that's great too, because we're two guys starting this company. It was myself and a guy named Sly, or he went by the name of Sly. And we figured we're bros, so brothers, and we had this grim determination to do a good thing with the genetics. And so that's how it started.
Well, now that Laura has become an integral part of the company, you're going to change it to Brothers and Sisters Grimm?
Well, it's implied, I guess, we've started specializing in feminizing this.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of legacy, you have a master's degree in nuclear engineering, my friend. I mean, that's not exactly typical background for a person who's a cannabis breeder. What made you decide to pivot into this industry?
It was an interesting progression, actually. I was always a scientific, mathematic, gifted in school when I was in high school. Didn't go to college immediately, but then when I did, I decided to go into engineering and then specifically nuclear engineering. I went to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. That's my alma mater. I got my master's degree there. And while I was getting my master's degree, I started growing marijuana in my walk-in closet. And so to get seeds, I wrote to a company called Super Sativa Seed Club in Amsterdam in Holland. And I started a pen pal relationship with the owner of the company somehow. And he offered me a job working for them when I got out of college. And I was concurrently working as an engineer by day and cannabis distributor by night. So it gave me access to like world-class genetics. And I had the impetus and motivation to work with the genetics and learn how to breed and grow and what all the different types of marijuana were like. And so I got an education for myself there. I did my own research, as they like to say today.
That's great. And, Brothers Grimm Seeds has been at the forefront of this industry for years now. What would you say are the key factors that have kept you guys in the leadership position?
Well, it used to be my focus on uniformity of the plants that came from our seeds. Every year, if you were to buy a package of seeds by a certain strain by Brothers Grimm, you could expect them all to grow uniformly and look alike and look as described in the description on the package. And the next year and the next year and the next year, every year that people buy that same strain, it's always going to come out exactly the same, because the way that we breed is to continually keep the mother and father the identical two parents and breed them every time, so that the result can't vary. It's those same two parents all the time. So I think that uniformity and the reliability of the product is huge in this culture, because, as you may imagine, not many of the people who are breeders or seed producers are scientifically educated as I am. And so I'm very strict about the methodology and science behind what I'm doing. Whereas there are probably a lot of people who, without that kind of grounding in science, are just working from old wives' tales and this is supposed to work and so on. And so I've been able to produce something consistent and uniform, and people really value that.
That's part of the reason why you can go to so many different dispensaries and get the same supposed seed, not seed, but get the supposed byproduct, and find that it's entirely different than the one that you got at the store next door. Now, you recently passed the torch over to Laura as CEO, which is a pretty big deal. Laura, can you tell me what made you make the decision to get in the space?
Since I was a child, but I grew up with a hippie mother. So it was always in the background of my childhood, being around the plants. And then later in life, I became more passionate about it because my daughter, my 9-year-old youngest daughter, she had a skin illness that was misdiagnosed about 32 times. And so I started diving into plant medicine and researching the, nutrition and different holistic healing. So that then I started a magazine. I started Cannabis Oklahoma magazine, and it was in reference to educating patients on holistic health and plant medicine. And I did a documentary with the magazine with like Senator Connie Johnson in Oklahoma, and with several PhD doctors, and we did hyperbaric chamber treatment and plant medicine. And that's where my real passion came into being in the cannabis industry, was for the healing of my daughter.
And the decision to shift over and allow you to become the CEO, who made that? Was that the two of you decided that together?
It was a mutual decision.
I think that also, when you asked what's the popularity of the company based on, I started to fill in that it used to be me, but now that Laura has come along in the past, say, 3 years, I want to say that her involvement has turned the company into a more modern version than I could have ever imagined it. And she's able to give the people what they want and have her finger on the pulse of what's interesting to the cannabis community. And her personality just works so well with keeping track of administrative issues, as well as dealing face to face and, word for word with people. Whereas me being a sort of a scientific guy, I'm in the background making the product, and it just falls much better for her to be in that role of, the people person.
And Laura, I mean, are you also involved in the breeding and the cultivation side of things, or do you focus more just on running the business?
Well, when I first started working with Rick, I was in the cultivation side. Along with my Max. So I worked for the facility that he had, a flower facility in Oklahoma. So I ran the grow there. And then when I moved here and came to what we would call his mothership, so the breeding facility, I took more over the business side of things. And then in the last year or two, I've started focusing again on cultivation as well. And I run some test grows and, for our tester strains. And I've been getting back into so I both as of now.
Well, as a newly minted CEO, I mean, how do you plan to balance, the legacy of Brothers Grimm Seeds with growth and innovation? Because I guess they're projecting that, this seed industry in America alone is going to probably be about a $4 or $5 billion bump to the overall sales of cannabis over the course of the next 3 to 4 years. how do you plan on balancing, the legacy of Brothers Grimm and meeting the demand that's coming? Because there's a lot more people who are getting into this homegrown attitude.
Right. Well, that's the whole point. It is about keeping the legacy of Brothers Grimm while building the future. So it's keeping the genetics quality. It's keeping what Rick has built over all of these years and making sure that we always honor, the quality of his genetics and keep those, clean and pure for the patients, and we continue doing what we're doing. But also, while we're building, we're educating, the people. We're educating them on plant medicine. We're bringing it into the future, whereas before it was more of a bro type of industry where it was, people were just out there to get high and smoking weed in prohibition, right? But now it's finding people and patients and connecting with the community and building bridges for, plant medicine and for education and giving people a voice to heal themselves and a platform to heal themselves.
In a landscape that's filled with, now we've got both, hemp, which is, well, hemp and cannabis is the same, but we have seeds that have to produce a grown product that is, within a certain constraint when it comes to the amount of THC. And then we also have seeds that have to literally, produce seeds that, have as high a level of THC that you can get. Do you guys produce both? Do you produce for the hemp industry and for the?
So let me address that. So, all seeds are hemp in
Right.
seed form. So they will all test under 0.3%. There's no THC or psychoactive property in a seed. So
Correct.
they're all a hemp product, no matter what they will grow into one day. So we produce hemp seeds. That's what we do, right?
Gotcha.
And then if I can follow up, I'll just add that we don't produce any seeds that grow into hemp, like a hemp strain. All of our strains that we produce are THC producing strains. But it's an interesting definition that any part of the cannabis plant that is 0.3% or less THC is considered hemp. And since when seeds are just an immature vessel that's a possibility to grow into a plant that one day would produce THC, at the time while it's a seed, it's still hemp because it doesn't have any THC in it, which is it's an interesting thought experiment when you consider that when you define something by what it might be in the future, that's kind of not fair pool, a dirty pool, I guess it is, because if that were made a precedent, in other words, if we were to say that, we're going to differentiate between a seed that grows into THC and a seed that doesn't, that would mean that you're defining that item by what it might be in the future, possibly, right? So it would open the door to farmers selling eggs for the price of a chicken, let's say, because, well, the egg has the potential to become a chicken. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense. And so the DEA did the right thing, and they defined all seeds, regardless of what they grow into later, as hemp. I'm sorry if that was long-winded, but
No. It was good, because I think a lot of people need to understand this, because you don't produce a seed specifically for the hemp industry. You're producing, you do proceed for. It's such a weird oxymoron. I mean, it is a hemp. It's hemp when it's a seed. Yes. When it grows, you don't provide any seeds. You don't provide any seeds to people that will be low THC or no THC.
No.
Okay.
We're known for high THC. That's part of our history.
Gotcha. And I wonder how much the country, or how many do people really understand that differentiation?
I think most people do. Do you?
Okay.
It's beginning. I mean, there's a lot of undereducation in the industry right now, and that's one of the whole points of what I'm trying to do is by getting the information out there so that people do understand, what everything means from a legal standpoint, as well as a medicinal standpoint. But yeah, there's a lack of understanding in the industry for sure.
And how do you see Brothers Grimm Seeds contributing to the larger conversation around cannabis education and patient advocacy?
I mean, basically doing exactly what we do. We create platforms for patients. We work with veterans. We work with patients. Like when I had the magazine, that's what I did. We would do documentaries and go all over the state and get patient information out to them. We would hold, patient drives. But it's just by, connecting with the people, hearing them, and then taking the time to educate them on what, the whole things for the plant.
Now, Rick, you've been breeding cannabis now since the early 90s. What's been one of the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry over those years?
Well, I mean, I think one of the main things that separates Brothers Grimm from any other seed company is the fact that we started so long ago during Prohibition. And so our roots are from that place of the culture and how it grew through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. Whereas today there are many who got in this business after it became legal. And I think that represents a different mindset and a different culture and a different group of people, if that helps answer the question, what differentiates us from other companies. That would be one of the main ones. That it's very difficult to find anybody who started during Prohibition because, it was the risk takers, the people who were willing to go out on a limb. And like myself, I'm an engineer by day, showing up at a corporate job. And at night in my basement, I'm another person, my other half living the cannabis culture life.
If you really, okay. But if you dig deep and for a lot of our listeners who are novices or have a general understanding of cannabis plants, I think historically, if you go way, way, way back a couple thousand years, the claim is that there were probably about 3 or 4 original, maybe even 6 original plants. Some of them were sativa, some of them were indica. And those 6 have now been crossbred. How do you go out and find and identify genetics that you want to utilize to define, let's say, a new strain?
Yeah, I generally will do the following. I look for the characteristics that I would like to have in the resulting strain, and then parents that would have those characteristics without having been polyhybridized themselves, you see. So something that has established itself as a pure or a limited hybridization in the parents, that will reduce the variation that you get in the resulting offspring. And so by doing that, it ensures the uniformity that, we've come to be known for. And so that's how I go about it.
Yeah, you go to a lot of dispensaries around the country, and you can find one strain in, let's say, Massachusetts, and there's a claim of that same strain in Connecticut, but it's not. And there's a claim of that same strain in Maryland, but it's not. It's a claim of that same strain in California, but it's not. It's a tough one. How do you make sure that and I'm gonna tell you something. I've visited multiple dispensaries and over 100 of them over the last couple of years, and not once has anybody at a dispensary ever suggested or told me where they got the seeds, or that they rely on their grower or a third party to bring them something. So no, this is the real Blue Dream. Yeah, real Blue Dream, my ass, because I know this is the real Girl Scout cookie. Yeah, my ass. That's what I want to say back to them, because I've been doing those two for several years, and I noticed that no matter where you are in the country, they're all different. And and I would love to have somebody say, well, these were produced by the Brothers Grimm Seed. So then I would know, okay, that means that that's something that at least is following a lineage that is a true lineage, rather than this hybridized bullshit lineage. You know what I'm saying? So how do you go in? When you go into this, when your product is being sent to a farm that may supply XYZ number of dispensaries, do you tell them that, make sure that when you put this on your shelf, you let them know this is produced from a Brothers Grimm seed?
Yes, the seed buyers that are the commercial producers of the products that go into the dispensary, it would behoove them, when they are growing from Brothers Grimm Seeds, to be announcing that to the dispensary and saying, you can tell people that this strain was grown from genuine Brothers Grimm seeds, and we have the receipts to prove that, and I think that that's the only mechanism by which we would be able to assure a customer in a dispensary that it really is a product that grew from our seeds. And wherever that's applicable, people are doing that to this day. There are a few of our customers, for example, in New York. That's the first place that comes to mind. And, they have our endorsement, I guess, is the way that would work. And where your experience, when you've gone into these dispensaries, as you were just describing, there was no receipt that they could show you to say that. It was just the word of the whatever they call the guy behind the counter in a dispensary.
Yeah, whatever they call them, because they call them different things. He says,
not a barista,
when you, right? It isn't. I mean, of course, that we've been working on trying to form a relationship around a couple of seeds that I have thought about, and I wondered, how do you guarantee for yourself that when you want to create a new, strain, that the original two seeds that you utilize or to crossbreed are really original, or are they so hybridized that it's a brand new product in itself?
Because he's been in the industry for so long, he has the original connections for sourcing those seeds, or he already has them in the vault, right? So we have a pool of old school breeders that we have good communication with and good connections with, and we also have a pretty big seed bank that we have, from the original strains.
Over the years, stashing away in the vault, there have been a lot of these original strains that I've kept, as well as when now, say I'm looking for something that I don't already have, it's very likely that original breeder is still alive and a friend of mine, and I can reach out to them and get the original article from, the horse's mouth.
Knowing that the home grow industry is going to take off, we know this is going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You can bank on it. It's going to happen in the next couple of years and over the next couple of years, and be a big vertical within the industry. And so many new breeders are probably trying to jump into the marketplace. How do you stay ahead of the curve and maintain Brother Grimm's seeds the way you have, and the reputation for the quality that you have?
I think it's something that's inherent in the nature of this business. I sometimes use the analogy that say you're a horse breeder, and you have a client who wants to win the Kentucky Derby. He's going to buy a horse that has the potential to win the Kentucky Derby. How does he pick a horse that has the potential to win the Kentucky Derby? He goes to the breeders who've been successfully breeding horses that win the Kentucky Derby. And so Brothers Grimm has a 30-year or 25-year history of producing high-quality product. The price is not bad at all. I mean, it's the biggest bang for your buck in the whole cultivation industry. What you get from a seed, there's nothing that compares to that. So when they're not risking that much money and someone wants a high quality product, they simply turn to the trusted breeder who's been around for a long time, not Joe Blow, who just came into town and started his breeding business. He has no reputation and no experience. So I think that's what keeps us at the forefront. It's who's the oldest and most trusted and reliable breeder out there. Brothers Grimm name just pops up,
That would be one main reason. The other one would be the connection to the people. So connecting with the people and being there to be a direct communication for them. So I speak to all of our customers directly. And every time it never fails. I can't believe you just answered the phone. They don't ever get anybody personal on the phone with these other seed banks. They don't have any communication. They get to speak with us directly and ask questions, ask how to germinate, ask how to go through the process. And sometimes my husband's like, wrap it up, because I'll be on the phone all the time, because I really enjoy helping guide people. And so building the connections with the people. Most of our customers are my friends now. So that's another reason.
Well, what's one of the most challenging strains that you've ever had to work on, and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, it was, I would have to say there's a breeder in the world, the cannabis world, called Capulator, and he released a clone about, I want to say 6 years ago. And it was called Mac 1. And I have, in my some 30 years of breeding, never seen any strain where I really sat up and took notice of it and said, wow, it looks interesting. I'd love to have that. And so there are certain rules that he set up for people how you could obtain that clone. And I obtained the original clone and I started working with it. I liked it so much that, being a breeder, obviously, I wanted to try to take those genes and pass them on into a new strain. However, this was such a special plant that it had genetics that were prohibitive of breeding, and it produced very few, if any, seeds, even when pollinated. So that was the most challenging. I'd never seen that ever happen before, and I had to learn a lot about polyploidy and why that would cause the problems that I was having, and then how can I get around it. That was, again, perhaps this, or maybe we'll try that, a little bit of trial and error. It was by far the most challenging and frustrating, breeding project that I ever had, because of the fact that it really frustrated me, and I spent years trying to get it the way that I wanted it, and I had to kind of give up and say, we're just going to have to live with an alternative. And we found a great alternative. So in the end, I kind of got the results I wanted, but it was by a different route. But that was the most challenging one, Mac 1 by Capulator.
Well, it's very interesting because I am, I don't know if I threw a monkey wrench at you guys when I talked about the two seeds, and I don't want to give them up because I don't want anybody else who's listening to this know what we are doing. However, the attributes of the two different strains that I approached you with, how do you ensure that you can get the effects once you breed them together? How do you ensure that you get the effect that you want? I mean, is there, I scientifically, there must be a way to ensure that if you have one plant that's got, let's say it's got a set THC level and a set THCA level and a set, then you look at all of the, the terpenes that are, how do we, and I want to be able to breed these two together so that I enhance, let's say, one or two of those terpenes. Is it a 1 + 1 = 2? Is it how do you do this?
No,
how do you go
not.
after it? Okay.
Well, it's kind of a common misconception among people who don't understand breeding that when they put two strains together, that's going to be like putting two different colors of ice cream into a blender and just letting it spin, and it's going to come out some homogeneous combination of the equal parts of both. And it absolutely doesn't work that way. Anybody who studies genetics and goes through that formal process would know that there are ratios and there are certain percentages of the offspring that will have certain traits based on whether the parents have them and whether or not they're homozygous. These are terms that are genetic terms. And so it's a testing process is how we know what the result is going to be. Is we have a good idea of how we're going to create it, and then we have a whole testing process to ensure that we got the result that we were looking for.
And then you were saying it's only a certain percentage of the seeds that come from the breeding process that have those particular attributes. Will those seeds then carry those attributes through their lineage as you grow a plant, then that one flowers out, and then you get the seeds from that, and you do it again? Will they all have the same? Is that no? Okay.
No, most of the time, because they're hybrids, you can't take two hybrids, a brother and sister, let's say, and cross them together and then have the result be the same strain. It would be something different. There would be variation. But if you have two parents that produce a strain that you've tested and you like it, and those seeds are uniform, the way to continue making those seeds is not to breed from those seeds, but from the same two parents. And we just keep those same two parents alive perpetually and making those same seeds over and over.
Got it. And they pretty much test out the same?
So I think your question was, two seeds make more of the same, and the answer is no, they don't.
Okay, but now once if I yeah,
If
it
that was
wasn't.
the
So if
question.
I have the parents and I maintain those parents, will they continue to produce the same percentage of seeds with a particular attribute?
Absolutely, yes.
Say it again.
Yes, absolutely. They will continue to create the identical seeds every time because they're the same two parents. That's not how commercial seed production for, say, corn or geraniums, or, these kinds of other plants, not cannabis. They are generally made from a field full of parents rather than a single parent for both sides of the equation. And so by keeping two specific breeding pair to create the seeds, you're always going to keep making them the same. Whereas if you were depending on an entire field of flowers to create the same seeds over and over, that's a different process and has different ratios of successful uniformity.
Am I wrong when I think like, okay, if let's say I grow roses and I want to make a particular pink rose, and I can take a red rose and whatever other color rose I have, a white rose, and I pick two parents and I identify a particular shade of pink. I take a picture of that shade of pink. I want that shade of pink every single time. Do I have to use the two parents or do I have to use the field of parents to do it?
You use the same two parents, and even in those cases, there will only be a percentage of the offspring that give you that particular shade of pink. There will be, in that situation, some of the offspring that are different from that, but once you have identified the group that is the shade of pink, then they would have to do further breeding, and that's a line breeding process that would then get you that 100 or virtually 100% of the seeds that give you the shade of pink that you were looking for. But it wouldn't just be from the red one and the white one again coming together unless you had the combination of genes that just happen to work. Like I was saying before, it doesn't normally work this way, but it works like a blender. And if the offspring from a red and white rose makes pink for 100% of the offspring, then you're done. You keep using that red and white parent, and you're always going to get that shade of pink result, and with 100% of the offspring. But most of the time, it doesn't work that way. But you're lucky when it does, and it's nice when it doesn't. And we've had that happen.
Sure. Wow. The one thing that stands out about Brothers Grimm Seeds is your commitment to breeding practices like feminized seeds, stability, standout genetics. What drives that commitment?
I just, have a perfectionistic nature. Whenever I'm doing things, I really want to do it right. I have a slogan on my Facebook page that says, doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. And so that's just behind what I bring into any project that I start. I think it's that basically.
Well, sure. Well, Laura, let me ask you a question. I want to touch on the community engagement. What role do tester seeds play in, ensuring that you get the feedback that you want once you've gone ahead and crossbred or you bred something?
Right. So basically, we created the tester program to engage with the community. Instead of just doing small test batches where we're having just our small group of people testing or just a lab testing, we're involving the whole community. So we have a QR code on the back of our packages. They get to upload their data on a large scale basis. So everybody that is ordering from us, whether it be a home grower or a boutique grower or a commercial cultivation facility, they're able to upload the data back to us, and then we are able to take it from there. And it gives them the sense of that they are a part of what we're doing, and they get to have it, part of the decision making, and it just builds,
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your creative collaborations. You've worked with people with like the Trailer Park Boys, and now we're even launching a seed line together. What do collaborations like these represent for Brothers Grimm Seeds and the cannabis culture?
It's actually a new side of the cannabis industry that has not been there before, and it's building bridges for cultures, bringing different cultures together and allowing them to understand, everyone's perspective, or whatnot. Like, well, like with the Trailer Park Boys, it wasn't just fun. It was about bringing their fan base and creating more awareness. And like with Ice-T that we just partnered with, he's like the authentic voice that everybody listens, that's just, and he's about the legalization and supporting that. And then like with you're like the heart and an advocate for the patients. So it's bringing all of the communities together and bridging a gap that has been needed for a long time. There's a lot of misconception in the cannabis industry, and we've got one side that's all about, if you don't smoke or you don't do this, and it's kind of lost its, over the last couple of years, lost its heart, and it's become more about greed and money, whereas our purpose here is to build awareness and education and help people.
In general, I mean, I'm glad you went there, Laura, because I was going to ask the two of you, because you have such a lineage in the industry, 30 years plus. What do you think about our industry right now? And let me start that before I let you answer with throwing something out. I happen to be personally a little bit more disappointed in the industry than I thought I would ever be. You nailed it when I think you said there's too many people who got in this business because they thought it was going to be a green rush. They were trying to figure out how to go buy their first yacht and really didn't give a damn about, where this all began. And it all really began with patience. People need to stop and shut up and understand that there would be no wreck anywhere had there not been a patient dragged out of their home in Northern California on a gurney with IVs sticking on them just because they were growing a single plant in the backyard. This whole movement would have never begun. And so we need to go back to the idea and understanding that, if you want, I happen to be a person who believes very strongly that anybody who gravitates to cannabis for a medical reason. I don't give a damn whether or not you're a medical user or you got a medical card or not. You go to a recreational facility. If you pick cannabis over liquor, you picked it for a personal reason. That reason was because it satisfied some symptom that you had or something you had. If you use cannabis, I believe, because when you come home from work, you want to relax, that's a medical reason. If you use cannabis when you come home because you want to help you, you want to be able to go to sleep a little earlier, medical reason. If you say, I just really have so much anxiety, so I use cannabis to see, medical reason. So, what do you think about this industry? Because I think some of that, when you were talking about the heart of the industry, I think some of the heart of this industry is gone. It's been gone for years.
It is. And it's really sad too. I mean, and when I started my magazine, that was the whole purpose. I was so excited to get into this industry, and I'm working with all of these people, and like the farther I got along, it just, and some of them got into it with the right intent, but then they started, making all this money, and their intent flipped, and they became like completely different people, and it just became about something else. And instead of coming together, people are attacking each other and judging each other, and it's not what it should be. And one of my main focuses is recreating that awareness and bringing people back to the root of the plant.
Yeah. What do you think, Rick?
I think that she's spot on, and that's why she does what she does in this company. She's the heart and the face of the humanity side of, and I also agree with what you were saying earlier. There was an old saying that somebody used to say, all marijuana use is medicinal. I mean, quite simply stated, every time someone uses marijuana, it's always medicinal. It's helping them in the variety of ways that you were just pointing out a moment ago. So, and as people drift away, as Laura has noted, from that core message of like, we're all helping ourselves feel better and be healthy through the use of this plant. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it always seemed like such a hypocrisy to me.
Well, and there's also nothing wrong with those that don't, right? So that's the other thing is this industry are starting to judge people that don't smoke. Well, I mean, not everybody drinks coffee. Not everybody, smokes cigarettes or whatever the case may be, but it's not about that. And the industry has lost they've lost their focus on what's really like the root is love and building people up, and instead they're attacking each other because one doesn't smoke or one made it. Like, it's a little bit ridiculous, and it's time to make a change, and also with the legalization of it as well.
And let's talk about legalization, because we're sitting right now at a precipice where possibly this particular administration that's in office may do something changing, the status, which I'm not necessarily in favor of at all, unless we get rid of, from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. I'm not in favor of that at all, because I think this industry ought to fear that rather than think that that's a good idea.
Well, and here's the other problem. It's not even just about them changing that. They're trying to reclassify the seed as a marijuana product and make it completely federally illegal to sell or grow or anything. It's just about control, and it's about I think if you remember right, like the Bible was printed on hemp. They're taking away people's rights to a natural plant that is grown out of the earth, and it's not okay. And it's just the purpose has changed, and it's frustrating.
But I mean, but let's just look at what we're facing over the next couple of months, whether or not this particular administration decides to do that whole deschedule thing. If they deschedule and make this a Schedule 3 drug, it falls under the purview of the FDA. Mm-hmm. And if it falls under the purview of the FDA, people who have never, ever, ever acknowledged the medical efficacy of this particular seed, we run the risk of everything.
Them never.
Huh? What's that?
I said we run the risk of them never understanding the purpose of it.
Correct. And we run the risk of them stepping in and saying, okay, I don't give a damn what state law said for you. Now that we've made this federal again, close every dispensary that's open. And any product that's on the shelf has to be run by a group of people sitting in an office in Washington, D.C. to approve, including your seeds. Then what do you do?
That is true, but I will say that it is the state law supersedes the federal law in reference to that. So it's per state. It's by state. So even if the federal government says no, the state can override that. They just can't get money at a bank, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's up to the state to decide.
But at the same time, you take a look at a federal government that's just decided that even though a state like Washington, D.C., a state like Maryland has its own purview or its own police department, you just saw what just happened on the streets of Washington, D.C. So now there are, one announcement that I'm going to use the National Guard to go close down every dispensary in XYZ state. Ain't nothing.
It's a scary time we have.
I mean, that's the biggest issue.
And at that scary time, I mean, what do you think this industry needs to do to prepare itself for and get ready to counter that effect?
I'll be the other side of the coin. That yes, absolutely. We have to pull together. We have to be a community that all cares about our common goal of keeping this plant available. And we also have to recognize that how things get done in Washington is that lobbyists pay or basically buy politicians to get things the way that they want them. I think there's enough money in the cannabis industry that we should have a lobbyist too. Maybe that's the only way. You can't beat them, join them.
But, one of the things that you said that this industry needs to do this, but I'm just so disappointed in the fact that this industry, we're at a place right now where cannabis has sold for the last 5 years in a row more product in America legally than milk. Our numbers are somewhere between 27 and $31 billion a year right now in the legal market, and in the black and gray market, it's somewhere around 75 to $80 billion a year. And so there's enough money here for us to come together and figure out how we can do things like hire lobbyists.
And also
yet we don't do it.
The fact that it is such a billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, should speak volumes to the government in terms of we wouldn't want to shut this thing down. We're making money off of it, right? I especially the administration that's in right now, they're very much money motivated. So I wouldn't think that they would move in a direction where they would shut down cannabis as something that was producing a lot of tax revenue. So we have that going for us at the very least.
Well, let's hope that. Let's hope that. Let's go back to a different topic. I mean, do you have a favorite strain that you've created, or is that like trying to pick your favorite child?
If that's directed at me as the breeder over all of these years, I would just have to say Cinderella 99 because it made me famous, and it's the oldest strain in the company, and it was the beginning of the company. And for those reasons, it's always going to be my favorite. It was that special thing that I've created. Since then, have I made more potent strains? Yes. Have I made strains with other flavors? Absolutely. But for that reason, I think the historical, emotional impact that it has for me makes it my favorite. What about you, honey?
And what about you, Laura? You said you had one. What's yours?
Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is one that is super balanced. It won High Times in 2018 as one of the top 10 strains in the world. But for me, it's very balanced. So like I have to work all day. I have to take care of my children. I have to I have to be able to focus and concentrate. And there's a very just real balance there. And I've watched multiple people also like feel very medicated from it, whether it be from pain or, cancer or anything like that. It's just a very balancing strain for me.
Gotcha. Okay. And what do you want people to know? What do you think that they don't know about Brothers Grimm that they should know about Brothers Grimm Seeds?
I think that they should know that, while media kind of provides a different perception to people and they think, oh, this is huge company that's, got like hundreds of employees. We are a small family business we do everything by hand. We make sure the quality of our product we count every seed by hand. We package them ourselves. We do this like with quality and care because we want everybody to get the very best that we can provide. And it is, we test everything. We make sure that no one is getting something that doesn't represent us very well. And so there's about 5 of us here that are really like just producing the best that we can produce every single day.
Well, we're almost out of time. So anything that I didn't cover or anything else you want to add?
Just remember that we're at brothersgrimmseeds.com.
How about you, Rick?
Come see us at brothersgrimmseeds.com.
There you go.
Keep an eye on our Instagram feed, Brothers Grimm Seeds, if you want to stay informed.
What? And I'm super excited about what's coming up with Montel.
I'm excited too. I don't want to throw it out there because I don't want anybody to try to beat us to the punch, but the 2 genetics that I literally like and just think that they're going to make a pretty amazing child once they're together. Yeah?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I really do. I really believe that. So
I'm excited about it for sure.
And last thing, how do you ensure that Brother Grimm's seeds remain accessible for the home grower as well as stay appealing to the large scale cultivators?
We're going to be available to the home grower first and foremost.
That's
because that is the root of our industry. Is who. Right. So we are open to that. Yes, we create. We're able to help all facets of the industry, whether it be a commercial cultivation or whether it be home growers or whether it be boutique growers. We have the ability to address all of those needs, and I'm never going to change that. They come first because they are what build this community.
One last time before we jump out the door, give them your stats. Where can they go to find out more information?
brothersgrimmseeds.com.
I'm going to let you go, Rick.
That's our website, brothersgrimmseeds.com. And then
brothersgrimmseeds.com.
brothersgrimmseeds.com. 2 M's in Grimm.
At Brothers Grimm Seeds at Instagram also.
Well, I can't wait for this collaboration to hit the ground running, and we're so excited about helping to promote. You guys take care of yourselves. Stay well. Thank you so much for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel today. I hope my viewers recognize where they need to go. If they're looking for a seed, this is the place to go. I'm telling you, no ifs, ands, or buts. Well, thank you guys for being a part of Let's Be Blunt.
Thank you, Montel.
Can't wait to see you and can't wait to meet you in person, okay?
Thank you, Montel.
That's right. You be well. Yes, sir. You be well. Take care of yourself. And you, make sure you keep tuning in. Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments. Military Makeover is so grateful for the support of Purple Heart Homes, a nonprofit organization that rebuilds and transforms the homes for our veterans.
Our heroes come home with sacrifices most of us can't imagine. As a veteran myself, I've been there and founded Purple Heart Homes to help.
When I tell the story of Purple Heart Homes, it's the freedom to not have to depend on somebody else to do the simple everyday things in life.
Visit phhusa.org/makeover to learn how you can help.